Hey there, beloved Ascension pioneers. Welcome to another video of mine, which I think now will become more rare because as time passes by and I'm more deeply into my moving process, there will be times when I will be needed, somewhere else, and my devotion will be somewhere else as well. So until I can find some time and space for all of us and to record some of the videos that I'm guided to, I'll try to do it, but next week I think it will be pretty dry. And when I get to my new place, I'm not even sure I'm going to have internet at the beginning. It looks pretty bad right now, so yeah, it's a village. It's not a city. You can get all the connection. But besides that, let's just move on to the topic today so that I don't get too much, and too hyper about everything, because there's so many things I could be talking about. But I will be talking about something that I was really guided from my heart today. After having a conversation with a beautiful soul, with whom we decided to do an interview very soon and co-create something, in a shared space. So it was a very nice connection, and we were just rambling about some things. And the topic of Atlantis came up, and something that I was already mentioning in my previous video, and something that was shared in Dolores' books, which I'm reading now if I have the time, which is very non-linear, just some fractions of it, what is needed in the moment. And I was just saying some things that came through, and about creation and responsibility, and the learning this responsibility and mastering it after this cycle of Atlantis. That was actually one of the most pivotal cycles here on Earth in the evolution of the species. So anyway, what I will talk about today. First of all, let me say that there are people who talk about Atlantis, and there's people who's been there, who's experienced it. But of course, each of us have experienced it from our own level of where we were. I had numerous dreams, and like I said, one of the psychics told me that a few years ago, and it was all about Atlantis. And it was all about holding the sacred space there. So when I was reading this in the book from Dolores, and it was shared how those who are working with the grids, the grid workers, were actually working with the flow of co-creation here on Earth. And they weren't just there for how they mentioned it, the common people, the people who were there and learning and growing and exchanging energy with each other, but actually with the Earth, with the planetary DNA, with the grid frequency, how to bring creation from the ethereal into material, how to create, through the etheric pyramids and so. And I haven't been discussing these esoteric things so much lately because I've been so much in the physical, in the dense realms of how to change things in the physical. And it's how it is, and Spirit is sharing with me that this is more important now because we need to actually make the change. And then of course it will continue, but the flow of information is constantly coming through us, and especially now with the the Lion's Gate. It's tomorrow, it's the 8th of 8th, and there's going to be new information coming, and Earth is constantly being bombarded with new information, and it's just coming through so many gateways and gatekeepers and pillars of light and record keepers, or however you may wish to call it. But what I want to talk about today is what the Atlantis experiment, what can we learn from it, what we are mastering in this cycle of experience and civilization, and how we can gather what was there, the lessons from there, the lessons from all of the earthly eras, and bring them here. So if you look at it like every planet at the beginning is being seeded. Why is this so important? Why is creation so important? Because what was coming up yesterday in the conversation I had through me, what I was verbalizing through, was the importance of creation. And why it is so important through it to learn the self-responsibility that actually a soul is learning on his journey eventually. It's like with the babies, when they're small, when they're little children, they don't have much responsibilities. They're just playful, they're just, they're totally free. But then, as they get into adulthood, things are changing. And many things that I thought were it, through this Saturn cycle that I had, the Saturn return, are now falling off. They're totally integrating anew. There's a new level of responsibility, the new level of adulthood, and initiations into my own self-mastery. And you can think of it as everything is reflection, of our internal universe and with the external, so micro and the macrocosm intertwining. And everything that is happening now on Earth, you gotta know it's not just about Earth and this planetary shift. It is so much more. It is universal and it is galactic. Well, you know, you can have the levels: planetary, galactic, universal, multiversal, and so on. But it's always, everything is about creation, the expansion of creation, and certain souls who are ready to learn about the nature of self-responsibility, because you have this free will to utilize, to master. And the moment you master it, you don't need it anymore. You know, the thing is, whenever you master a certain something, a certain aspect that is given to you through your source experience, when you master it, you will notice that you move to the next level. So you don't need it anymore, because now you're seeing things from a new perspective. It's broader, it's more expanded, it's different, you know? So the challenges that we have once known, and the lessons and the experiences we take on to the next level, only is the growth. Not as what was, but what we took from it and what we can enter into the new realm. And nothing of the old in the shift can be, you know, entered into. It needs to be through purity. You know, the souls who are not still within that space of purity just cannot enter it, because it has to be a total rewrite. Okay, so the lessons and experiences of the Atlantean era. Let's get back to that. It's so much to talk about. You know, when many times New Age people who like to say we're all one and all this matter, it's an illusion and nothing really matters, a lot of these people are actually afraid to take a look at their own responsibility, because when you know that you're a co-creator being, you know that you have this responsibility and that you're learning from it, you're actually learning how to utilize your source self, how to become a fully responsible source being. And you know, when Salvador Kelly said in his books that you don't just actually, when you master certain cycles, you don't just go back to source and become one with it. It's like baby, once it becomes an adult, it doesn't just go back into the uterus of the mother, you know, into her belly. It starts being its own adult. So this is kind of like we are. We're all one. We're part of the same source, that same oneness. It's kind of hard to even explain with words, you know, that one divinity. But we are fractioned into these beautiful different colors and fragments and experiences, and to bring a piece of our own into the whole. But we don't really become adults until we fully take the responsibility of what mastering free will truly means, and how that actually means not even needing it anymore, because you've entered the whole new realm of divine will. You know, when I started awakening, you know, and people are talking so much about free will, and I was on another level of experience, and I said to myself, I don't care. I don't have time to utilize my free will, because I have done it in my previous cycle before this awakening, and now I'm done with it. There's divine will. There's this expansion into who I am, is being guided by source, my source self. And I just, you know, I understand the free will, and most of the humans are still mastering that. They're still, some of them even don't know what it is and that they have it. But once you master it, you see that you're just more and more integral with all that is, and that's being called divine will. So service to all that is, and you're merged. So you're broader. You're already merged with everything. You don't need just your tiny personal free will, because you're merged with the greater substance and the greater experience. So the cycle, again, let's go back, of Atlantean nature was a lot about, you know, I mentioned this in one of my videos last year, how Atlantis was actually a period of time and of society, of the structure of experience that hold the most difference, you know, the highest differential between the aspect of evolution of the mind, you know, the higher mind and the heart. And they were able to maintain it for so long, and that's when the golden period, the golden age, was evolving and flourishing so much. And then they started utilizing the mind too much, and there was a lot of experiences that they wanted to kind of become like gods themselves, which we already are. But some of the things are not in our scope to play with. So what was also in the book, and what I knew myself, was a part of the fraction, you know, aside from those who were only working for the highest good, who were always working with the purest intent, because without purity, without humbleness, without devotion to that greater divine will, you can not even be that co-creator self. So if you go into the other pole, into selfishness, into egocentric beingness, and playing, manipulating, you know, trying to manipulate substance not through that purity, but through something else. And they were trying to play with the antimatter, which is the dark matter. And you know, they're doing the same now in the CERN experiment in Switzerland. And Dolores exposed this, which was really great for me to notice this analogy, because it's true. And the thing is, they did not yet understand the capability and the power of the divine and the sacredness that you actually only merge with through purity. And they wanted things their own way, a fraction of the experience. So because this was too much a potential danger, it was also shared in the book, and they could actually not just influence what was happening here in the destruction of the civilization, but the reverberation out into the cosmos and affecting all of it, and maybe even dissolving this universe. Because many scientists have already said this, that once you start playing with dark matter and you learn the proper ways, you can actually uncreate something. But this is where what I want to say about this really begins. The importance of creation, because a lot of people who will say, we're all one, we don't need to be individualized, I'm not taking responsibility for who I am as an individual source aspect, and this creation, this is just an illusion, you know what, it's not an illusion. And why is this so important to know is, as long as you can fully touch and sense and smell yourself, there's not an illusion, it's creation. If source wouldn't be expanding this way, there wouldn't be no creation, there wouldn't be no planets and stars and galaxies and multiverses. This all that is creation, because creation is love, and the principle of love is the principle of eternal expansion. So this is no illusion, my beloveds. It's just silly to say that, to even think of it, because why would we be having the experience when we say we're going to go into illusion, so we're gonna expand illusion, we're gonna explore illusion? It's not like that. We are actually learning through this. The illusion is when you start identifying yourself with it. But creation itself is not an illusion. And why is it so important to beings who have mastered this level and who are co-creator gods and who are co-creator essences? Let's say it like that. Let's not say gods, because in fact we're all tiny little gods, playing this game of realizing who we truly are as divine beings of divine love. But let's rather call them beings who have learned to co-create along with the divine. And they understand the importance of creation and how souls and all fractional fragments are learning through this. They're growing because Source is infinitely expanding. And it is important. That's why it was so important to preserve it. So in that hypnosis, when that soul was remembering this, she was crying a lot. And she was saying so much lost, so much lost. And a lot of times in my life I had the same feeling. I had the feeling when I was being of service and putting things out and sharing, that sometimes it's never enough. So I pushed myself, and I had this feeling it's never enough. No matter what I do, it's never enough, or people won't wake up, or this won't happen and that won't happen, because this was an ancient thing, this ancient pattern that is still connected with that. And there's a lot of patterns now that are resurfacing, that are deeply played out, that did begin in the Atlantis cycle, and that we still carried forth in this era to deal with, to purify, to actually create a brand new cycle. But we cannot create it until we understand fully the lessons of the first cycle. So we can never step into the new without fully realizing the growth experiences and what they brought us from the previous one. And what we can learn from that cycle is learning how to be responsible, learning how to first own your power, but then deal with it through divinity, not through ego and through separation and saying, I'm not one with Source anyway. I'm going to become a separate source. I'm going to create and manipulate matter in my own way. This is still coming from separation. This is coming from differentiation and not unity consciousness. So what this completion is bringing us is understanding, first of all, that like that soul shared, it's not easy because so much was lost, but it was a more easier solution, because that's where the destruction happened anyway, because it could have too many repercussions, elsewhere. It was terminated not just because there was war and the abuse of energy, but it was much deeper. And a lot of us have felt this and knew this before. It's coming up in many sources and resources. And it was a lot, these lessons and these parts of us that still we carry within us have to deal with releasing the guilt that what was terminated, and it was put to sleep. All the knowledge, it was put in the crystals, was put in the record keepers. It was placed around the grid that was like a sleeping grid, and now it's being activated, you know, and there's rainbow bridges opening, and the grid is being realigned, and many do this purpose just by walking these sacred trails and opening back these energies, or people who work with crystals and so on. And the person in the book says that there was actually like 10,000 souls doing this purpose who are the grid keepers, and there's like a special section of the volunteers. Whew. Well, I would say that I still myself carried a bit of those aspects. It's not just a personal thing. You see, when we say, oh, we have these clearing and it's happening on a level of our childhood, or these patterns, but some things are deeper. We all carry this collective purging that is still, you know, back in the days when this was happening. Because when we started, you know, exploring consciousness once more after the completion, the ending of that cycle and that experiment, so to say, we said we will do it fully anew. And we also knew that the earth is going to be going through its own cycle, and at that time we will have to be ready. And those souls who are those souls who are ready are actually learning about this responsibility. Because the moment you say, oh, it's an illusion, you know, I can do anything anyway because it's an illusion, that's not really mastering yourself. That's not really taking responsibility for your part and your play in this creation. Of course it's all play, but there's also responsibility. You know, these are two sides of the same coin. So souls who are still not aware of how much responsibility we have, but without taking the burden from it, you know, when you're carrying everything on your back. This is what I had a lot in my life. I remembered, because with great power comes great responsibility. And there was a lot of this sense that we had so much power, and it was lost, and how to regain it back, and how it's always there, but in this physical reality, how to merge it with this physical reality. There's this feeling, it can be like this pressure. Oh my gosh, you know, we need to do it. You know, who's going to do it but me? And what we wish for here is doing this without the burden of it. But before the burden is released, we cannot really do it, right? So it's a thing that is very deep. And a friend has commented on Facebook as well, saying that a lot of these patterns from Atlantis and these cycles are now resurfacing, and it's true because I felt it myself. And just recently, these couple of past days, I've been thinking again about Atlantis, and people are saying too, oh yeah, Atlantis comes to mind. That is very funny, because we are on the verge of this shift that, you know, there's so many things coming up, and the things we thought we've dealt with, and there were, because we're releasing through layers, but it goes deeper and deeper. So the deeper you go into your multidimensional self, and you activate greater and greater potential of yourself, with great power, more and more responsibility will come. And if there's still a burden of that responsibility, we will be, you know, asked to deal with it once and for all, and to really trust in our source that it will guide us. Because if we are purified, if we're pure channels who live in love, who are here to bring light to others, so this is awareness. Light is awareness, it's information. And we will be supported, and we will do this without the feeling that something will be lost again. And we need to master this cycle once and for all. And knowing that, you know, for me, it came through a sense of isolation, because a lot of the priesthood, which I was a part of, was isolated because they had this otherworldly purpose that others did not understand, you know, the common people. And we still have this sense, this deeper knowing, you know, knowing that you have to protect. You know, if you have a deeper wisdom, you know, it's like if you see a movie, you know, maybe Lord of the Rings, and you see the elves and the wisdom that they possess. You don't just share it with everyone. You will always share it with those people who know what to deal with it, who will be responsible with that knowing and wisdom. And because so many things were put to sleep, we needed to learn to deal with them properly, and to keep them, and to preserve them, and to be these record keepers, and to hold this, to be the pillars of this awareness until the right time comes when we can utilize this and share it along with those who understand it too. And if you look at it that way, you know that with this great sense of this power and your knowing comes a sense of protecting this, that which is the sacred. And these are all the lessons from that cycle. It's protecting the sacred, you know, knowing this wisdom, becoming an embodiment of it, but at the same time without the burden that you have so much, and you need to we need to let it go, because there's a lot of us there. And, you know, basically everybody who's now here on Earth probably has been in the cycle of the Atlantis era. because souls have been incarnating. Well, I haven't been, because I have been one of those souls who came in the pivotal peaks on Earth's history, when the consciousness needed to lift up, and there was a seeding of new consciousness. That was always my part, and it still is. And it's in a different format now, because a lot of times, what I also carried within me, this weight, was, oh, there's so much more to life than this. And I felt like the purpose I'm living right now is so small to who I truly am on other levels. And it's true on some note, and on another it's not, because everything is sacred, no matter what the purpose is, no matter how small. You look at a bug and it's climbing up this, this beautiful branch, and it carries, you can say, oh, too simple, not important. It's not true. We need to start valuing everything as sacred, and all these sacred paths are leading into one. And they're all important. And although, of course, for me, this is very dense. This world has always been very dense. And my purpose was how to transform it, how to alchemize it, how to bring something new, how to bring higher consciousness, higher awareness here. And this is something that I've always had behind me. And even when I was not yet fully in my awakening process, I always had the sense that I need to bring something more, that there's more to everything, and there is. But it should be without that feeling that what you are here now, although you have a sense that you had so much capabilities and power and knowledge and, abilities, and they are activating now because our DNA is activating, but only as much as we will need it. Only as much as it's appropriate for the collective, where the planet is right now, So without that sense of that it's not enough, and that there's something bigger, and even though it is, we coexist in all these realities anyway. So lately this was resurfacing, and I wanted to share this with you, and have we learned it? Are we mastering this cycle and knowing and understanding the purpose of creation? Because the co-creator gods, so beings, they understand why creation is so important, and I understand why creation is so important, and why it is so important to maintain it, to nurture its evolution, instead of just saying, oh, let's just delete it. Let's just put the delete button back on, and let's just see how it goes. There's a lot of communications happening during and between many light councils, who are continuously deciding how to handle this, because there's no interference, the non-interference policy. And we actually are the pillars of light, who are in direct communication with them telepathically, and we're bringing this forth through our own inner guidance a lot of times. And what we're in communication with them, and we understand what's happening, so we're being guided also with the coexistence of their awareness, of their decisions, and it's all one decision anyway. It's all one. We're a part of something much greater, and when you'll be noticing yourself, notice that there's not just patterns and things happening from your childhood. And I've said this many times, guys, we who are in this ascension path, we're beyond past lives. We're beyond this, never resonated with me anyway. It's not that it's something wrong with it. It's people who decide for it because they feel they need it, and they do on that level. I'm saying on this level, it's not important. It's about understanding the globalness of it all. It's galactic. It's also other galactic citizens and nations who are involved with this. And we're galactically, it's like different fractions of soul groups that are each completing a cycle that is needed to be completed on their level, I've heard from my friend yesterday this term, soul lineages. That's also one of the things, it's like lineages. And I say this, variations of creation. So each completing something, their own cycle, and bringing it into wholeness and unity and starting something new, because without that, we just cannot, There's a 999, which is a completion, and then before you cannot enter in the 10, it's a completion before you finish all those nines. So rewrite something, what we've learned from it, how we're dealing with our own responsibility self. This is all about power. So now the Lion's Gate is helping us to cultivate that inner power without feeling the guilt of it, or any shame of what's been happening in the past, or remorse, or sadness, or a huge burden, this huge weight we've been carrying. A lot of us who had this great power in the past, and still do, and we had this burden of carrying so much, and now we don't need to, because the moment we open up again to this purity of source, it's all one power anyway. What benefits one, what you carry, also it's carried for others, and there is assistance. So this is just my experience. This is what I wanted to bring through today. And the Atlantis period, like I said, it's important because it's not just one cycle. It is a cycle that's again happening now, but just in a new sense, in a new way, and it's being rewritten. So it's not something that's just land back into sea, long gone and forgotten. It's something that's actually, like, a lot of people have been saying this, Atlantis rising, Atlantis rising. It's not just the island, the earth, the physicality itself, and the volcanoes and all the activities, and that there's actually going to be an island, again, Atlantis back here. It's about the patterns that were back then are resurfacing, the awareness is resurfacing, the wisdom that was there, that was already known, is being reactivated, but now cultivated through purity in a new way before we can enter this new age. So guys, many beautiful blessings, and I'll talk to you soon when I can, if I can. Until then, enjoy your Lions Gateway. Enjoy it. It lasts until the 12th, and we have some other, I think, interesting alignments as well. I'll be doing my stuff, physical as well. It is a part of it when you're making the transition. And I love you all a lot, so take care. Bye-bye.